Just imagine, it's a crisp March morning of 2007. You decide to spend your Saturday off from school playing that new Fire Emblem game, Radiant Dawn. You're having a great time until suddenly, disaster. Micaiah died. How did this happen? There's no way she should have been. Oh no, what is that? In true 2007 fashion, you posted GameFAQs thread asking about this mysterious stat called biorhythm before going on with the rest of your day. Hopefully, this stupid mechanic never comes back. Right? Wait, right? Wait, we're bringing it back? Who wrote this Alright, you saw the title, we're bringing back biorhythm. But wait. Before you sharpen your pitchforks, let me explain. Like I did in my Fog of War video, I plan to make some changes to improve the mechanic before advocating for its return. And to make meaningful changes, we need to first understand why biorhythm flopped. For those of you who haven't played the Tellius games or failed pre-calculus, let me give you a brief rundown. Biorhythm is a passive mechanic added to Path of Radiance in Radiant Dawn. Each character has a point on a sine wave that oscillates from best to worst. This point moves along the curve between every chapter as well as after 10 rounds of combat. In other words, biorhythm moves on its own without manipulation from the player. In Path of Radiance, biorhythm gives the following bonuses and penalties. As you can see, it barely affects the game's combat, meaning players often forget about its existence. In Radiant Dawn, the effects are amplified, giving biorhythm a greater impact and thus attention. However, biorhythm's negatives are often more exaggerated to the player than its positives. The Tellius games, as well as Fire Emblem as a whole, are designed in a manner that the player's attacks are on average more accurate than the enemies. This is to create a sense of reliability as psychologically, players have inflated expectations about what hit rates actually look like. This is why systems like True Hit and 2RN were implemented. Biorhythm throws us for a loop by decreasing the player's reliability. Having a unit randomly lose 10 hit in the void can be enough to turn a close encounter into a deadly one. Additionally, psychology tells us that players are more likely to remember and attribute their failures to bad biorhythm than their reliability to good biorhythm. All in all, players remember when biorhythm screwed them over, not when it secured them a fight. So how do we remedy this? Well, the issue isn't that biorhythm increases or decreases hit rates. It's that we, the player, cannot change it. There are plenty of game mechanics that artificially change a unit's reliability, but they work because players can manipulate them to do things they couldn't previously do. So we're going to do the same thing to biorhythm. A quick disclaimer before we get started. Any values I present aren't necessarily balanced. What I mean is, the effects of biorhythm and how it changes will differ from game to game. My focus on this video isn't the exact values and hit rates, but rather the overall concept. Don't worry, I'll mention this later. Cool, with that all the way, let's get to work. The first and biggest change we're going to make is to convert biorhythm from a sine wave to a linear scale. Ranging from -10 to +10, biorhythm is now a numerical value that the player can see. This value can also be the basis for the hit/avoid modifier used, giving players a clear message of what biorhythm is affecting. For example, if a unit has a biorhythm of +5, they could gain 10 hit and avoid. Biorhythm innately begins at 0 for each map instead of a random value. Now, we need to talk about how biorhythm will work and how it will change. For starters, only the player's units will have a biorhythm. There's no sense in giving enemy units this feature if it's based on the player's actions and positioning. Other mechanics such as weapon triangle and terrain bonuses exist for enemies, but biorhythm will be a player exclusive feature. That being said, I propose 4 ways biorhythm can be changed. The first of these is the story. One complaint I have with Fire Emblem as a whole is the disconnect between the story and the gameplay. Biorhythm could serve as a tool to help reflect the character's feelings into combat performance. For example, say the main lord tragically loses one of their parents since, at this point, it's practically a staple in the series. That unit could begin the map with a low biorhythm, say -7. On the flip side, say a unit was just reunited with a close friend or family member, giving them a high starting biorhythm. If biorhythm is meant to portray how the unit feels, then story elements should directly affect it. The second way biorhythm can change is with the map and terrain. Certain classes could gain biorhythm bonuses based upon the tile they're on. For example, mounted units could gain 2 biorhythm points on plain tiles, while foot units could gain points while indoors or on peaks. In conjunction with regular terrain bonuses, players now have a wider variety of ways to manipulate their unit's positioning. As for the map, specific units could gain bonuses based upon where the fighting is occurring. For example, if a unit like Thea from Binding Blade is fighting on a snowy map, she could gain a small boost in biorhythm due to her being from a cold place like Ilia. This would further connect the story and background of the characters to the actual gameplay. The third way biorhythm could change is through supports. Instead of the current support bonuses, units could gain biorhythm points when near a supporting ally. This would allow players to directly see the combat effects of supports in-game via biorhythm. For example, if a unit is within 2 spaces of an A support, they could gain 4 biorhythm points. Now, this could be very easily exploitable with a modern support system, so, as mentioned before, it will need to be balanced depending on the game. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, you'll notice that the only way I've mentioned for biorhythm to decrease is through the story. That is because the last feature only decreases biorhythm, and that feature is fatigue.
Oh, hell no!
Now, before some of you get war flashbacks, let me clarify. I'm not bringing back Thracia fatigue, but instead something more mild and akin to Shadows of Valentia's fatigue system. Fatigue works by keeping track of the number of actions a unit has taken during a given map. Each time a unit performs an action, such as around a combat, they gain a fatigue point. As these fatigue points build up, that unit will lose biorhythm points depending on the ratio between max HP and fatigue points. For example, if a unit has accumulated 20 fatigue points by engaging in 20 rounds of combat and has a max HP of 32, they will be penalized by 4 points. Each unit's fatigue counter is reset from map to map, or it can be restored with a restore staff. Fatigue also encompasses the unit's health. The less health a unit has, the more they will be penalized. For example, if Micaiah is at 3 health out of 24, she will lose 4 points. This penalty is adjusted with her current health, meaning if she is healed to full, she will regain those 4 biorhythm points. The purpose of fatigue is to incentivize players to not completely rely on 1 or 2 units while adding another depth of story gameplay integration. You would expect a unit that is at critically low health and has been battling the entire chapter to be less agile than when they started out. That being said, fatigue should not make the game a slog or unplayable, bringing me to my final point. In order for this revised biorhythm system to work, it needs to be specifically tailored to its respective game. Systems like fatigue aren't going to work if units have insanely high or low HP caps. Also, the general balancing of the game needs to be taken into account. If biorhythm were to be implemented into a game with lower hit rates, such as Binding Blade, the scale would need to be adjusted. I couldn't imagine playing Chapter 21 with an additional -20 hit avoid near the end of the map. Biorhythm failed in Path of Radiance because it wasn't balanced. It was so minuscule that people could just ignore it and never worry about it. Biorhythm failed at Radiant Dawn because players couldn't manipulate it. It wasn't a tool, it was a hurdle for players to overcome. For a system like Biorhythm to ever return, it needs to be balanced and we, the player, need to have an input. It also can't be too gimmicky. Biorhythm needs to be something that feels integrated, something that feels natural. We don't want more gimmicks. We want more tools to play Fire Emblem. I'm Alduin, and thanks for watching.